Hi everyone and welcome back. As you can see behind me, a lot has changed since the last time we've been in the shop. We've been working hard on getting the B6 further along, and I wanted to take some time today to show everybody the different projects we've been working on to get this engine farther along. The area that is taking me the most time and I'm spending a lot of time working on is the ashpan area still. So I have the engineer's side is just about done except for the whole pan that I'm waiting on to get rolled. So I've made some new brackets. I made this piece of angle here. I took off this piece of metal, painted it, sandblasted it, and put it back in. And there was a whole bunch of little pieces that I'll zoom in that I had to take off, sandblast, paint, and reinstall. And it just takes time to kind of get all the rust out. There's a lot of sand and soot and ash that's still in here, believe it or not, from when this ran. So a lot of what I'm doing is just getting rust out and making it look good and be presentable, and also stopping any more corrosion from happening, because if you don't get all the rust out, you can have a problem where even if you paint over it, there's still rust in there, and the moisture in the air is still going to corrode it even though you painted over it. A big problem we run into is when you have two pieces of metal sandwiched together. If you get rust in between them, it starts to push out. It can go up to 10 times the size of the original metal, and that force will push the metal out, and that's where a lot of our problems here come from, because you have two pieces of metal, they rusted in between, they pushed out, and now they're either deformed, or that pack rust, we call it, inside there harbors moisture, and it's just going to continue to have problems. So a lot of this stuff I had to take off, get all that rust off, knock it off, and then put it back on. But when I put it back on, as I talked about in the headlight video, you have to make sure any metal surface you put against another metal surface is painted so that doesn't happen again. Even if a piece is inside, if there's moisture in the air, you're going to have rust between the two pieces. So it's important to kind of encapsulate that, make sure the metal has paint on it so there is no rust, and then you can move forward. But the process takes time. So in front of me is actually the stack off of the B6. The guys in the shop at the end of last week did a fantastic job of getting this freed from the locomotive and pulled off the locomotive. Now, the problem is, you might be able to see, is there's a whole bunch of pieces that are missing. So this stack is cast, and cast metal, while strong, can be very brittle, and it doesn't take any kind of force as well. So if over time and from the soot and everything, when this stack was removed, and even before it was removed, there were pieces that had fallen off, and we were lucky enough to be able to find all of the pieces. And now the next step is going to be tacking the pieces back with a special stick rod, and then we're actually going to braze this back together. So what the guys in the shop did last week, which is fantastic and extremely helpful, is they actually put this back together kind of like a puzzle, and every piece is numbered, so we'll be able to put the pieces exactly where they go, and I'll have help, and they'll help me hold the pieces while I tack them in place exactly where they need to go, so we can get this back together. So another area I have going, kind of an overlooked area, is the area where I'm grabbing all the components from the ash pan and I'm painting them. Now, the interesting thing is we use this direct-to-metal paint, and it calls for 2 coats on the pieces. Well, the problem is it takes 4 hours before you can recoat. So a lot of times I'll come in here and I can only get like 1 coat in a day. So these are all the pieces off the fireman's side of the ash pan. So the engineer's side's just about done. The fireman's side, I'm in the process of getting everything painted and ready to put back in. This pan here is the deflector that stops the ash and everything from hitting the linkage for the grates. So in between me kind of getting everything ready to be painted underneath in the ash pan, I'm also having to come out here and paint these over a period of time so they're ready to go back in too. But it's just interesting. Sometimes you kind of forget that, like, sometimes you literally have to wait on paint to dry, so you have to get a part ready, paint it, and then find something else to do while you wait on something else to dry. So it can be a little tricky. So while I've been working on repairing the ash pan in the back of the locomotive, we've been having volunteers spending a lot of time and doing a really good job getting the crosshead guides all polished back up with some Scotch-Brite material and using die grinders and making this look really good. This should be pretty smooth for the crosshead to go back and forth on. So they did a really good job getting this looking good. This won't get painted when the locomotive is repainted, but we wanted it to look really good and how it should look when it ran, so they've done a good job with this. This side's done, and then the other side's in the process of getting done as well. In addition to the crosshead guides getting polished up and finished, we've also have the volunteers are needle scaling and prepping this for paint. So they're knocking off all the loose rust, and then they're hitting this with a rust abatement so the rust doesn't come back and it's kind of encapsulated. So they're hitting all the wheels and kind of getting the underside of the locomotive ready to go, which is fantastic. I think they're doing a really, really good job. So sometimes when you're doing a project, you kind of anticipate something to take a long time or something's going to be hard to do. And I was really pleased over the last couple weeks. I spent a good bit of time. I actually got that whole ashpan mechanism working again. So what these handles do, and I'll cut to a video of me opening and closing them. But what these do is these actually open the door. So there's one handle for each door, and you might be able to see when I move this handle, the door underneath opens. So I was concerned that it was going to be kind of a mess to get everything freed up, but actually, pardon it due to being a little worn out, but I took a torch under there, and not in much time I was able to free up this whole mechanism. So these now work again, which is pretty cool. That was something that we were kind of hoping that would be the case. It wouldn't take much work to get going. So if we run into something where we can get it working mechanically and it's not too much work, we usually go and do it, just because it's a good representation of how it used to work. And it's nice to actually get the stuff, even though it won't run, it's nice to get the mechanics of it working. So I wanted to close today's video with kind of like a what's next for this as we finish up the ashpan. It might take me a couple more weeks to really get the ashpan where I want it. I'm waiting on a couple pieces of metal to get rolled. They're a little too thick for us to roll here in the shop with the roll we have. So I'm waiting on those pieces to come back. Once they come back, I'm going to piece everything back together on the pan, and I'll do a video at the end kind of showing exactly what was involved with it, and I'll take everybody up inside it because there's a lot more to it than I can easily show from the outside. But the next step of this, we remove the stack, and the next step is kind of starting to do the work inside of the smoke box. So inside these smoke boxes, they were very, very prone to rusting because of the sulfur in the coal. Add water to that and you get a whole mess of problems. So there's a lot of stuff inside here that's going to need fixed, and we're also going to have to take this whole piece off, the whole front of the smoke box off, because it needs repair on the bottom. There's some rust holes in it, and I want to make it look really good. Also, what I'm really looking forward to is I've been having some students come in over the weekend and help me with the headlights. So we're getting ready to get the headlight for this done, and I'm really excited to put that back on because it's going to make it look a lot more like a locomotive instead of kind of an engine without a face, so to speak. So this is what's coming next. Look forward to that. I'm going to have videos of me continuing to build the headlight that we're working on. And I also wanted to say thank you everybody for watching the videos and subscribing to the channel. I'm not one to ask for people to subscribe. I think you should subscribe kind of on your own merit. But it's been really fun doing this, and I'm glad that people are enjoying us, seeing us work on this equipment and getting it back to looking the way I think it should look. And we all here at the museum think it should look, which is really exciting. As I approach 3,000 subscribers, if you were interested in me doing something that I haven't done, maybe a Q&A, or maybe you had a question about a specific thing, or maybe you guys have a whole bunch of questions that you want me to just go through and I'll film myself at various spots in the museum answering them or explaining them. If that's something you think you'd be interested, let me know in the comments so I can start working on that video. Having a full-time job and doing this part-time, I don't have as much time to do videos as I would like, but I appreciate everybody dealing with kind of my sporadic uploads lately. It's hard to have a family and do this at the same time, but I'm going to continue working on the channel as long as I'm able to, which is for the foreseeable future. And I hope you come out and stop out at the museum at some point. If you see me walking around, feel free to say hello. And thank you everybody. I'll see you in the next video.